this is an interesting time, and of course, a very challenging time to be fundraising. I always love to throw this in. This is one of my favorites. If you haven't seen this before, I'm sure some of you had, the guy on the plane with the champagne, what my mom thinks I do, hand out the window, what my friends think I do, in the convenience store with a loaded weapon, what my donors think I do. This one's my favorite, plucking money off the money tree, what my board thinks I do, pulling a rabbit out of a hat, what my executive director thinks I do, and licking 1,000 envelopes, what I really do. So all we got to do is add a few more masks to that, and we got it, right? We got it. Okay, let's do our first poll. And what's interesting about this is I really want you to answer about your own personal giving. Will the amount that you usually donate to nonprofit organizations be impacted? Maybe it already has, maybe it's continuing to be impacted, but how has this impacted your giving? So through the magic of Zoom, we will see everybody's answers. I really think they need some Jeopardy music for the polls. Do, 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 do. Okay, no singing, Ellesley. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Seeing lots of great responses. Almost got everybody. We're at 83%. A couple of you are still a little groggy. You can answer the poll. We may, a couple more. Thank you. Thank you. A few more. Are we ready to close it out, Stacy? And we're closed.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we're all closed. Do you see the results?
I do see the results. Thank you.
Okay.
So 51% of you said that your giving wouldn't change, and 31% said you'd donate more. And a couple people said you weren't sure. Okay, let me stop that for just a second. Well, here's what's really interesting about that. So this same question was asked by Fidelity Charitable. They did this, I think, in June, to try to gauge, well, how are giving behaviors shifting and changing in the midst of this pandemic? And when they asked this question of about 1,800 people who had all made a gift of $1,000 or more to charity, look at their responses. Pretty similar to what we said, that the amount of money that I donate won't change. So what does that mean? The study goes on to say, what best describes how you plan to support nonprofits this year? And you see at the top of the list is people saying, for the most part, I'm going to keep giving to the nonprofits that I usually support because I figure one way or the other, they are probably being impacted by COVID-19 in some way. And so I guess this is good news if you already have existing donors, because it means if they've been giving to you, they are likely to keep giving to you. The question is what's going to inspire them to do that, whether or not they would give more, depending on the mission of your organization and how it's being impacted by COVID-19. I guess, as I said, I think this is good news. We'll start with the good news, which is that if people care about your mission, they are very likely that they will keep giving. So a little bit more good news. This was from Stephen Shattuck. He's the CEO of Bloomerang. Some of you out there may have Bloomerang software as part of your donor management program. And this just caught my eye, and I think he's exactly right. There's no such thing as a non-COVID essential charity. I think when the pandemic started and we were on lockdown and whatnot in March and April, and even today, hospitals, healthcare organizations, food banks, there's a lot of organizations that are certainly on the front lines of this. But I think he was reminding us that no matter what your mission is, it's been diminished, it's been impacted in some way by the pandemic, and that every organization is worthy of support. And so I've gotten this question a lot, which is why I'm starting with this, which is, well, Ellesley, we just don't know, if we should be asking. Should we be asking? And my answer is an unequivocal yes. Yes.
What?
Your mission is important. What you do matters, otherwise you wouldn't exist. And so now the question is, well, how do we get that ask out there? How do we put it out in front of people in a way that will resonate with them, especially during this time? One other bit of good news, if any of you are followers or have read any of Penelope Burke's work and books, she is a fundraising researcher and author. And all of her donor research confirms that donors will continue to support you during a crisis. If they trust you, they will continue to support you. So the question that I would ask you to think about is, what have we been doing up to this point to build trust with our donors, between our organization who support it? Because the better that trust level is, I think the more money you will raise, period. But especially now, I think the more money you will raise. And as I said, I think asking is something you should be doing, is something you must be doing. You know, the number one rule of fundraising, if you don't ask, you know, you don't get. So let me pause there and ask, are there any comments or questions before I keep rolling? Otherwise, I think we're going to do another poll. Anything, Stacy, I need to be responding to?
No, I do not see any questions that have come in.
Okay.
You want me to go ahead and launch that second poll?
Yeah, let me turn to this next slide. So feel free, if you've got a comment or a question, I'd love to hear it. So let's put this out there. How often, on average, are you asking for a gift? And by this, I mean, you know, an individual gift, a one-on-one gift. How often are you asking? Let me see some of the answers. Okay, I'm seeing B's and E's. E meaning that there's no direct, you're not doing any direct asking.
Oh, here we go, Alice.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, got it.
All right. We were going to.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No problem. Okay. Thanks everybody for improvising, responding in the chat. So let's see what we get here. Okay, about almost 70% of the way there. Appreciate you all responding. This is really helpful. A few more, we're at 80%.
Okay.
Anybody else? Please respond. Otherwise, I think we can
All right.
close out
I'll
the
go
poll.
ahead and end it if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so 44%, the biggest response is that you're not doing any direct asking. So appreciate you sharing that. And then the next one was once or twice a month. Okay. Let me just jot that down. Okay. So that's helpful. Thank you for letting me know that. Let's go. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, here's what I want to do. I made the point earlier that I think, you know, and actually in our goals for today, you know, the idea is that you want to be building relationships with the people who are giving and people that have the capacity of giving again or potentially giving more. And so let's just take what I call the relationship quiz. So in your notes or somewhere around wherever you're sitting, get your pen ready, or just think about this and think about the person in your mind, the donor, maybe a current donor, maybe even a prospective donor, someone that you think they have ability to make a gift, and they have a belief in your mission, or at least know of your organization. So think about the one that you think, gosh, this is really the person I would love to ask. I think they appreciate and value what we do, and this is my person that I really want to ask for the gift. So get that person in your mind, and then here's what I want you to do. I want you to jot down their spouse, their partner, their significant other's first name. So that's the first one. Their significant other, partner, spouse, whomever, first name. I did this one time and somebody said, what if I know the name of the dog? Not quite the same, but if you know the name of the dog, jot that down. Okay, Number 2, last vacation. So where did they go on their last vacation? If you know that answer, jot it down. Number 3, their favorite hobby, other than donating to your worthy cause, of course, but their favorite hobby. And then number 4, favorite food. I've also done this before, and someone said, well, if I know their favorite drink, does that count? So yes, if you know their favorite drink, you can write that down. Okay, let me look in the chat. How many of you got all 4? Hands. Susan Moore, I see you're all 4. I'm scanning the list here, the pictures. Anybody else all 4? Beth's shaking her head. No. Anybody else? A lot of you are not on video, so I can't see your faces. Okay. Well, I think you might do this. Fundraising is a relationship business. It always has been. And I think now more than ever, which I know we're probably going to say that just like a lot of other things we're saying over and over and over again, but now more than ever, you need to know the people that you are cultivating this relationship with. And the relationship, of course, is between them based on their interest and the mission of your organization. And so if this is something, if direct one-on-one asking, major gift fundraising, individual gifts is something that you and your organization really want to focus on, then knowing answers to these kinds of questions about the people that you are building relationships with is just a simple way to know, do I really know this person? And then from there, do I know why they give to our organization and why our cause and our mission is so important to them? So we're going to talk more about that. So here's a common refrain, and maybe you've heard yourself saying this or lamenting this, or a board member might have been saying this. Well, why didn't, to the donor, well, why, nonprofit says, well, why didn't you give us $10,000? And the donor says, you didn't give me a $10,000 reason. And I think the point that I want to make about this is that giving follows vision. And as fundraisers, which I've been, like I said, since 1492, if we feel like, oh gosh, well, Beth's got the capacity to make a $10,000 gift, why isn't she giving it? This is what the donors are often saying. Well, you didn't give me a $10,000 reason. And when it comes to individual giving, more than the $25 somebody might give when they respond to your year-end appeal, but the reason somebody's is giving more has the more the zeros, the more value back to the donor that has to be there, and it has to align with what the donor cares about, whether they have $10,000 to give, $1,000 to give, or $100 to give. We've got to put that compelling, persuasive reason in front of them. And talk to them and align that with their interests in order for that gift to happen. So here's another way that I see it happening. When organizations are doing this kind of fundraising, they say, well, if you give $500, you can help 5 children, or you can send 5 kids to camp, or whatever it is your mission does. You can help 5 people do something. If you gave us made a $25,000 donation, we could help 25 children. We could do that 25 times over. And I really think this is a flawed case. And it goes back to what I was just saying. Just because they have the capacity to do it, I really could. I've got $2,500 and I could send you $2,500. I don't think just knowing that I'm going to help 20 more people necessarily is enough to inspire or motivate them to give more. I think the key is connecting to what the donor really values and aligning that with the mission of your organization and the needs that the people you serve have. Because remember, this is one-on-one fundraising is not about the needs of your organization. Fundraising in general is never about the needs of your organization. It's about the needs of the people that you serve. So here's another way to think about that, and I think it's just brilliant. I wish I had done it myself. This is from Mark Phillips. Frog Fundraising. And this was something he shared at the AFP International Conference in 2019. And I just thought it was brilliant. So on the left-hand side in the blue, you see, things that we as nonprofits want to tell the donor. Well, we got a great mission and we need your money and here's what we do and here's how you can help and we've been in the news and we have a different approach and we're great and we're working hard and here's what's important to us, et cetera, et cetera. Then on the right side, on the purple side, this is what the donor really wants to hear. Well, do you value me? Do you know me? That you see me? That I know how my money is going to be used, that you remembered that I gave last year or that I've given before or things that I've said and done. That personal approach. And then in the middle, you see where those two things overlap, how we solve a problem together. And I really think that this is this is really key. That in talking to people about individual giving, particularly bigger gifts, it has to be about, we're the organization, we've got programs and services and dedicated staff, we've got answers, we've got resources, we've got services and programs. And what you have is a passion and an interest and the ability to make a gift to address the problem that we want to solve together. And that's the approach in talking to people about giving, particularly about giving at higher levels. Going back to that, well, why would I give you $10,000? Because we're going to solve a problem together. Why would I give you $2,500 instead of $500? It's not because we're going to count heads and you can help 20 more kids. It's because in order to solve this problem, we've got to have more investors. We've got to have more resources in order to solve this problem. And so when you give at higher levels, you help us do more and serve more in order to solve this problem about an issue that you, the donor, care about. I just looked down at my notes and a reminder to myself, one of the best askers I know always focuses on what does the donor want to accomplish. So Beth, if you're the donor, Stacy, you're the donor, what do you want to accomplish, rather than, oh, I'm the nonprofit, we've been impacted by COVID, we had to cancel our special event, we're not meeting our budget numbers, loosey-goosey, the sky is falling, here's what we need to help us meet our budget. That may all be true. I'm sure it is true, but that's not what's going to motivate someone to give. I see some flurry in the chat box. Is there anything I need to respond to, Stacy or James? Otherwise, I'll keep rolling.
We do have a question that came in. How do you measure your effectiveness?
How do you measure your effectiveness? We need a whole 1 hour snap meeting just to answer that question. How do you measure your effectiveness? I think there's lots of different ways to do that. What I will say is I think a lot of organizations measure outputs. We packed this many backpacks, we provided this many services, and really what donors want to hear about is your outcome. How, by doing that, what changed, what's improved, what's different than it was before your organization was working to do that. So a lot of your grantors and funders, I'm sure, require you to produce measurable outcomes. And so, the same kinds of information that you're sharing with those other funding partners could very well be what your individual donors would want to hear. Here's where we are, here's where we're trying to go, and here's how we're measuring it as we get there. That's a short answer to a really big, long question. Okay, let's keep rolling. So we have another poll question here, which is, what is your greatest challenge when it comes to asking for a gift? And I maybe should have offered an F, all of the above option, but I didn't. So I'm forcing you to pick one. Or you could say other if there's one on there that I didn't pick for you. So, this is getting a lot of response, a lot of anxiety flowing right now through your fingers into the poll question. What is your greatest challenge when asking for a gift? So let's hear what people have to say about this. Thanks everybody for responding. 75% and climbing. Okay, a few more, or is that it? About 80% of you have responded. Okay, Stacey, let's close it out. So the best way to ask was our number one. Let me just jot that down, which was 32%. And understanding the donor's interests, which we've been talking about, is 23%. And then, of course, the fear of asking, always a big one, 28%. Okay, knowing the best way to ask. Okay, thanks, everybody. That's really helpful. So that's a great segue, actually, into our next slide. One of the things, going back to building that relationship and building that trust, is this issue, which is getting to know that person. And so this is from Rachel Muir. I follow her on Twitter. I've heard her speak once or twice, I think, at the AFP conferences. I really like what she has to say. And these are some of her recommended discovery questions, meaning the kinds of questions that you would want to ask if you're talking with and getting to know a donor, or maybe even a prospective donor. And I'm not saying you rattle off all these questions at once. And some are going to be more applicable than others. But certainly, you know, why do you give to our organization? Tell me about why you started to give to the organization. If you're new on the staff and you've got a donor that's been giving, you know, for 5 years, how did you first get involved? How did you first hear about our organization? You know, and we do so many different things to serve the community. What's the most important to you? Susan, I'm thinking about you and Easter Seals. I mean, there's so many, and every organization, Futures Foundation, there's so many different things that you do. As a fundraiser, early in my fundraising career, I thought, oh my gosh, we do 25 things. Our donors must know and love all 25 things that we do. And of course, the reality is there's probably one thing, maybe two, but there's really probably one thing that you do that really resonates with them. And that's what's inspiring them, motivating them to not only give, but to keep giving. So the question I would ask is, do you know what that one thing is? Particularly from that person that we identified earlier in our relationship quiz, that you're thinking, gosh, you know, I would love for them to increase their giving, or what would we have to do to inspire this person to make a $5,000 gift instead of a $1,000 gift, or whatever dollar number resonates with your organization. So, you know, what are you passionate about? What do you care about? How did you first get involved? I think the other thing you can do is combine this with some open-ended questions, which is once you ask the question, well, why do you give to our organization? And then they answer, you know, I wouldn't fire another question at them. I'd follow that up with, well, how did that get started? Or tell me a little more about that, or what happened next? So really, just like a conversation you'd have with a good friend or with a colleague, right? You want to know more. You want to know more, because what you're trying to do is align the things that they care about with what your organization is doing. And you're going back to that center of that Venn diagram. You're looking for that overlap between what they care about, what's important to them, what they're trying to accomplish with their giving and with their philanthropy, and what your organization is doing to serve the community. So I guess my takeaway on this is know thy donor, and know why they care, why they're here. Why are they here? Why are they even on my donor list that I inherited when I took this job? How did they get there? The other thing I would suggest, so maybe put a little H with a circle around it next to this one for homework, which is, you know, who are the 1, the 3, the 5, the 10, the 25 people that I would want to ask some of these questions to? Who are the donors that are already giving to our organization, already support our mission and believe in it to some degree, that I want to deepen that relationship, that I want to build, you know, and really reinforce that trust. And I want to get to the what do they care about and how can we solve this problem together? Because that's really one of the first steps in developing an individual giving program, and being in a position to ask for those one-on-one gifts, because you figured out, well, gosh, I've got 100 donors on my list, but really these are the 3 that I think have capacity to give or to make a bigger gift, and are very fervent in their support and belief in the mission. I just need to know more about that. So your homework assignment number 1 is to make that list. If you haven't already, to make that list and be thinking about, who would you want to ask these questions of? I want to follow that up with one other slide, and then we're going to do a breakout and give you all a chance to talk to each other. So the thing that I really want to advocate, and I'm essentially been saying this, is permission-based asking. So one of the questions, the best way to ask, which was everybody's number 1 concern. I'm a big believer in this. First of all, I love my little guy there. Family killed by ninjas, need money for karate lessons. It's permission-based asking. I'd really love to ask you a little bit more about how you first got involved or interested in our organization. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about that? If I may, what can you tell me about blah, blah, blah? Or with your permission, I'd really like to ask you a few questions about your interest in what we do. Those kinds of permission-based questions, again, I think they go a long way towards building trust. I think they go a long way towards your ability to get to know this person, not just this donor, but this person, and better understanding why they give, so that when the time comes that you really earn the right to ask, which is really what we're talking about, how do you earn the right to ask? You've built that relationship, you've built that trust, you know what they care about, you know why they're giving, which is why you then are in a position, hopefully, to say, you've been supporting our organization for many years, you've been a generous donor, you know that this is the issue now, or this is the problem, or this is the concern, or whatever, and here's an opportunity for you to make a difference in an area that I know you really care deeply about. That sounds like we're in this together, solving a problem together, rather than, my job is to ask for money and we need money in the budget, so, send money now. Even though you might be thinking that on your down days or on the inside, but that's certainly not the approach that you want to take in order to be really successful with this. So unless there's any questions, I'd like to do a breakout. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break you into small groups, like 3 or 4 in a group, so that you really can talk with the folks that are in your group. And I want you to talk about, if you will, your response to that question about what your greatest challenge is. And based on some of what we've talked about, or even things that you're already trying, one way that you're working to kind of overcome that challenge, and then your first steps towards implementing it. And I know there's always, there's a lot of wisdom in the group and the participants. And so if you will, give everybody a chance to say a few words and to answer this question. And when we come back, I'll ask for a couple of people to share either an aha moment or brilliant ideas. We're going to give you about 8 minutes for this, which, believe me, is going to fly by. And then when we come back, we'll share some of what folks had to say. Anything else, Stacy, before we break them into groups?
Yeah, so Alice, we had a question come in. Maybe we can answer that before we go to the breakout room. So Jean LaCour asked, how do you approach a new potential donor with this method?
You said Sheila was asking that?
That was Jean.
Oh, Jean. Oh, sorry, Jean. Well, I mean, Jean, you're kind of at square one. Oh, hi, Jean. I see your face there. Hello. Good morning. Hi. I love seeing your face. Well, it's, it's the same process, but basically, if it's a prospective donor, you're trying to get a first date, right? You're still at the very beginning of the relationship. In fact, you don't really even have a relationship yet. You just kind of have, they're not a qualified prospect. They're not a prospect. They're a suspect, right? So they're on what I call the outer bands of Saturn when it comes to, connection to your organization. So, you've got to start with, this is who we are. This is what we do. Does this interest you? Can I get a first date? And then if the answer is yes, and they, they're willing to talk to you, or maybe they make an initial a modest gift, that's an indication there's some level of interest. What's going to be our second date? And so, you know, a lot of this I've been talking about are folks, I'm hopeful that you've already been dating for a while and you're kind of ready to pop the question for a bigger gift. But if not, I think you've got to start with from the beginning. Hi, this is who we are, what we do, and tell me about you. And because, you know, major gift fundraising or even individual gift fundraising of any kind is based on linkage, ability, and interest, right? Linkage, what's their connection to our organization? Ability, what's their capacity to give? And interest. And of those three, Jean, which one's the most important? Interest. So you're trying to cultivate interest. You're looking for interest, and then you want to cultivate interest. So, good question. Thank you. Okay, let's put them all in the group, Stacy, and we'll see you back in about 8 minutes.
Okay, sounds great. See you all shortly.
Just about got everybody in the group? Yep.
Just about. We have a handful of people on the call who are not joining the group. You know, I'm going to move Denise to another group.
Yeah, she's in there by herself.
She is. Yeah.
That's no fun. Move her to another group.
There we go.
Anybody else by themselves?
It doesn't look like it. We have a couple groups of 2. I can merge those 2 groups if you'd like.
Let's just leave them as they are.
Okay.
So 8 minutes, which we've already been in the group about a minute, right? So we'll want to bring them back about 9:05. Is that about right?
Yep.
Can you send them a little message about a minute out? If they've got a minute left? Okay.
Sure. No problem.
So I guess we've got about 56 or 58 on the call.
We do. I think we started with about 60 or 61.
Mm-hmm.
And once we went into the breakout rooms, we lost a couple people.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be a double-edged sword, but I don't know. I think sometimes some of the best information you get comes from listening to peers, other people that are
right
in the trenches doing the same work, and they may say something that, you know, makes your light bulb go off.
Okay, so 15 people asked for help. Oh, admin in room 15 asked for help. Okay, let me join the breakout room.
Okay.
Hi, Leslie.
Hey, Susan, how are you? You didn't want to join a breakout this morning?
I did, and there were 2 ladies in there, but I couldn't get them to talk to me. Neither. One of them had their audio or their camera on. One of them was
oh. You know, it's a challenge when you're on this side of it and you're creating the breakouts. If they're on mute or whatever, then there's nearly no way to know that on this end.
I tried.
Well, you can talk to me.
Anyway,
I'm glad you're here this morning. It's nice to see you.
You too. Hi, Stacy.
Everything
I was
going
just telling Alice Lee, I popped out of my breakout room because the two ladies that were in there, they weren't talking to me.
Oh, you know, that just happened in another one of our groups. So I popped in to help her and I moved her to another group. So if you'd like, I can move you to a group that's more active.
Sure. I don't mind.
Which room
I
were,
just figured I would pop back over here.
what room number were
I was
you in?
I believe I was in room number 6.
Okay. Okay, so Marita and Maisha were not participating, huh? Oh, John and Jerry asked for help.
And I just,
Yeah, I mean, it can be a challenge. At the same time, you know, an hour of me just going blah, 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 can be a bit much as well. So I think we're all learning how to Zoom, but I do miss the in-person presentations, you know, where you really get to see people's faces, all the, you know, make eye contact, see everybody, and be able to respond to the group. I miss that.
on a happy note, the donor that I had in mind, that I was
Yes.
eager to say that I could answer 4 questions, that donor is making me a $25,000 gift on Friday.
Made a $25,000 gift. Woo!
Committed, will be committed to do so on Friday.
I'm having a
That's
little
so
bit
much
of a hard
fun.
time hearing you. Say that again. I'm having
I
a little
said
bit of a hard time
will
hearing you.
make.
Saying that again.
Yeah, it must be me too. It's my VPN. Hold on one second.
Well, that's great news, Susan. Stacy, is everybody doing okay? They've got a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we just had to move a few people around.
Okay.
We had a couple groups where people couldn't hear each other and didn't seem to be participating.
Okay.
You know, I wonder if we
Yeah, I
want
was
to
telling
wrap
Susan
this
that.
up a little bit sooner.
Okay, I'm fine with it. Whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready.
So we'll give them 1 minute.
1 minute? Sure. Sure, sure. Sure.
Can you tell if that's better for my audio? Do you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you now. Okay.
I'm also hearing an echo.
I'm also hearing an echo. Oh, I'll
Do you
mute.
hear that?
When I'm on my VPN, it doesn't work well. I should get just on my laptop, but I'll mute for now.
Okay. So we'll be bringing everybody back.
Okay, so I'm going to close the rooms and bring everybody back.
Okay. Great.
Oh, actually, it's giving them a 1 minute warning.
Is it?
So I should have closed it a minute ago.
Well, hopefully there's been some good groups, some good discussion. It's hard to know on this end, like, you know, I was saying to Susan, if folks they're on, but they're not actively participating, that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back. Trish, hi Jane.
Hey.
I just like seeing people's faces. I was just saying, I miss the in-person presentation when I can see people's faces and make eye contact. Welcome back.
Okay, so Alice, everyone should be back.
Okay.
I think we need somebody to mute. We have an echo.
Okay. Yes. Oh, that made a big difference. Thanks, everybody. So, I know we had a couple of folks that got into groups that other people weren't participating, and we had to move you around a little bit. So thank you for your patience on that. I'd really love to hear from somebody. If you would like to kind of raise your hand, we can unmute you, or you can unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. What you shared, what you heard, if you had an aha moment or a great takeaway from the conversation. Anybody willing to share on that?
Yeah, I can start. This is Maisha. So,
Okay. Hi, Maisha.
Hi there. One of the things that we talked about was just the fear itself of asking and having the message in your head from your parents that you're going to ask for money, and things like that get in your way. And so then you say, okay, well, maybe I'll get beyond that. It's supposed to be business-like. And then, you get started with the question. So this type of training is very good because it makes you prepare yourself for it. And then one of the other comments was that not only you get to know what you want, but you need to know and understand what you're asking, for. And then making sure if you have 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 no's, just keep going back. That was
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you make a lot of really good points there, Maisha. I mean, this is a tough business. I mean, if you've done fundraising for any length of time, you know that you're going to get some no's. In fact, you may get a lot more no's than you get yeses. And sometimes those no's don't mean they don't value your organization or that they aren't going to keep giving at the level that they've been giving. They're just not able or interested in upping that gift or giving at the level that you thought they might or that you asked them to consider. So you do have to be tenacious in fundraising, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And your point about understanding, really what you're asking for and what you're asking them to do. I think that's a really good point. And that whole, you don't ever talk about money. And here I'm saying exactly the opposite. So a lot of fear in that, but also, a lot of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hopefully you're representing a cause, and I know Maisha, I know you do care immensely about the work that you do, and I'm sure everybody on this call is passionate about the mission. So other comments, feedback, aha moments that somebody would like to share? I'd love to hear it.
This is Nisha. I can't find my little hand to raise here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who's talking?
Nancy.
Okay, hey Nancy.
Hi. Listen, we our group did quite a bit of talking, and the thing I came away with was when somebody suggested, I have trouble just making the ask. I'm passionate about the organizations and I can talk about them all day, but it's actually the ask. And somebody had suggested putting a face to the ask. Instead of thinking, oh, I've got to ask them for $10,000, I really, in my mind, need to put in that it's going to help these people this way, or what it's going to do for this donor if they have the best health care right here in their backyard and they don't have to drive to Jacksonville. And to me, that was an aha. I've done the other things that our office is small, where I take the director with me and we get to know the donor and talk with them, and he does the actual ask, which is awesome for me. But this, I'm putting a face behind that, something that I could see in my mind, was a great suggestion.
That is. So whoever said that, 3 cheers for you.
I give her the credit, but I'm terrible with names and I can't remember her name already.
If you were in person, I'd give you some money pencils, but you get a virtual money pencil. I love that. And you all do this. I mean, you all are on the front lines. The work that you're doing, you are seeing in your mind the people that you're helping, and having that in your mind when you're thinking, gosh, this is one of the people that's going to benefit if I'm successful in earning the right to ask this person for a bigger gift. Sounds great. So looks like Jean has her hand raised.
Hi, I was in a breakout with Trish.
Okay.
And she was talking about someone that she had met She didn't know, but she had done some research and knew that they were analytical. And I was thinking as we were going out of the break room,
Uh-huh.
I can be passionate about everything I want, and just because someone communicates differently doesn't mean they're not passionate about it. So think using the communications of if someone's analytical, give them that analytical pitch.
Yes.
With sociable, then you give them the heartstrings. If they're a director, do it down and dirty. Just figuring out that person and their communication styles would help.
Yes. That's a really good point, Jean and Trish. I'm glad you guys talked about that. And I don't have it in my slides today, but this is something you might want to Google, which is the 7 Faces of Philanthropy. There's a lot of work that's been done on that, and it describes the 7 donor types. And they're just as you described. There's the socialite, there's the compassionate, emotional person, there's the fiscal person that wants to know the numbers, wants to know the analytics of it. And so that's another thing that we do, I think, in fundraising is, and even in this conversation, when you're talking about donors, like they're all one amorphous group. And that's why having that smaller list of 10 people, 3 people, 7 people, 1 person, whatever it is, you're getting to know that person. And so if you had, even all of us on this call, if we were all prospective donors to one organization, why we give, what motivates us to give would all be different. And so the challenge in the one-on-one direct asking is that we're not sending one invitation to an event or one direct mail and trying to motivate everybody to respond to that one ask. It's exactly the opposite of that. It's like, how do I cultivate this, and how do I tailor this based on the needs of the person that I'm talking to? So it's a very different approach and much more customized. So I think I'm going to need to keep rolling. If you have other comments you want to share, feel free to put them in the chat. But I can see, I'm looking at my clock, that I need to keep rolling. So this is something I'm also being asked a lot, which is, what's the case for support now? In light of recession and pandemic and whatnot. And so going back to I've been giving $500. Why would I give $2,500? Why would I give more? Or why would I give again if I've already given this year and now you're asking me to give again? So these are just, possibilities, but I really think you need to be thinking about what's changed, right? What's new? What's changed? What's next? Maybe you've got 100 people on your waiting list that you can't serve right now and that's come as a result of COVID. Or maybe you used to be able to serve people in this amount of time, and now it's taking you much longer in order to do that. So their wait time is longer. Maybe there's a new need that didn't exist before. Maybe, and this comes from an organization I was working with, they're like, we're way over 100% capacity and don't see an end in sight. And so they have to be fundraising in order to meet that increased need and demand. So again, put a little H with a circle around it next to this one. What is your case for support now? And of course, case for support is that fundraising term for what's the compelling, persuasive reason why someone would want to make a gift. And if you're asking for a bigger gift, you're asking for a renewed gift, I think you're going to need to be able to articulate, what's the case for support now, today. Might have been different than what it was in March. Certainly probably different than what it was September of last year. Whatever your year-end appeal and any of these individual asks needs to be, customized and tailored to what's happening right now. So I also wanted to share this. This is from Better Fundraising, and I just think this is a really great graphic, and it speaks to some of what I've been talking about. And of course, the mantra here is ask, thank, report, repeat. Ask, thank, report, repeat. And when it comes to, individual giving, particularly, but really fundraising. I know you're asking, I know you're putting your message out there and you're asking, and I'm very hopeful that you're thanking those gifts. And we tend to go from ask to thank, fast to ask, right? Ask, thank, ask, thank. For a lot of organizations since the pandemic, a lot of groups, rightly so, have been putting a lot more emphasis on stewardship. So they've been doing the thank and then reporting and the check-in, and kind of vacillating back and forth between thank and report and check-in and thank and report or whatever, so that when they get back to ask, you know, they've really earned the right to ask for that gift. I really believe in this model, and I think organizations that are doing a better job of the reporting, you know, of saying, this is the impact your last gift had. So the reason we're coming back to you for another $100 or $1,000, let me tell you first what we did with your last gift. And so if you're not doing that, I really want to encourage you to make that part of your fundraising plan, that your fundraising plan is not just a series of asks with some thank you letters thrown in. It's a series of asks and a way to ask people a really thoughtful and robust thanks and stewardship program, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes, and reporting on results, letting them know how their gift made a difference, who it served, so that they know that that's been done. Okay, I sent them $100, I sent them $500, and I took care of the 5 children, but in what way? What happened? What were the outcomes? What difference did it make? What difference did it make to the donor? So that you've earned the right to go back to, and now let's ask. And I love, by the way, these little descriptions on each one of these. That just helps you kind of, again, put yourself in the perspective of the donor. What are they thinking? So put a little H next to this one, if you will. So with that in mind, I want to spend the rest of our time here, and I can see we're getting low on time, on just this idea about reporting and on stewardship, because I think it is, quite frankly, I think stewardship, organizations that do a better job at stewardship, which is more than just a thank you letter, are the ones that are more successful with fundraising on a year-to-year basis and on an ongoing basis, because it's about reporting back what matters to the donor. So here's another way to think about that. The first is information, the next is access, and the third is experiences. Information, access, and experiences. So the more you're doing, because this is really what donors want. They want information, access, and experiences. So the more that you're doing to provide that, again, you're earning the right to ask again. And so the example on the left, I just love this one from the consortium. The fact that they call it an investment report. An annual report sounds like this is about our organization telling you what we want to tell you. An investment report is about what your investment made possible. I've also seen them called gratitude reports. So this is a way of showing the donor, this is where your dollar made a difference. The next one is access. And sometimes access is about, you know, access to the CEO. Sometimes it's access to a board member. Sometimes it's access to folks that are actually delivering the services. And the last one is experiences. So this is the student receiving a scholarship being presented by people, and those folks could very well have been, you know, the organization or part of the group that helped fund the scholarship. And so right now, I'm seeing some organizations do a great job of providing virtual access. So they're doing virtual tours on Zoom. Come see what's happening in the maternity home today. Or I saw another one that it was meet one of our vice presidents. This is a community college, you know, so you're hearing directly from the person who's working at the college on a particular issue. So meet the CEO, meet the instructor, figure out who your person is, and give donors who are giving give people who are giving an opportunity to kind of see behind the curtain. Get access, feel as though they have access and information to behind the scenes somewhat, as to how their gift is making a difference. I really think, and I really think that could be done virtually. For the CEOs and executive directors on the call, this is especially for you, but even if you're in a development role, committing to stewardship. And what do I mean by that? So prior to the pandemic, I would have said, daily calls, weekly handwritten notes, and monthly visits. And I've decided even since the pandemic, I feel the same way. That monthly could be done, virtually. It could also be done with a board member. So I think if you really have that list of people, that one person or 5 or 10 people that you really want to ask for that bigger investment, that reporting on results and reaching out and building that relationship is one way that's going to increase the likelihood that when you pop the question after some dating, that they are actually going to entertain that ask and going to say yes. So a daily call, and right now phone calls, and by the way, snail mail is, I think, really appreciated in ways that maybe it wasn't before. So I talked with one colleague that is sending an average of 35 notes a week, 35 handwritten notes a week. Now they have a pretty big donor base, but they are making it a commitment and a priority, and they're hearing just tremendous results on that.
So Alice, I just wanted to interject quickly and let you know that we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And we do have a couple questions that came in. Are you open to taking those, or should we wait
Sure.
until the end?
Oh, let's do it now.
Okay, so all right. So Tara asked a question earlier on. Let me scroll up to get back to that. She wanted to know how to manage overbearing donors who want to control their donation.
Who knew we needed a glass of wine this morning at the SNAP meeting? Yeah. First, I'll say, Tara, I've been there. The donor that thinks that when they make their gift, they're buying more than services, that they're buying some kind of decision-making authority. And of course, the reality is they are not. There's a fine line between, asking your donor for their input and engaging them and including them and talking with them about the mission and hearing from them about what their concerns or even their suggestions. But ultimately, the board and the CEO are responsible for deciding, what the organization's programs and services will be and how they will be implemented. Tara, I don't know if you're the CEO or if you're the board chair. I know one thing I've seen work with donors who tend to overstep their bounds, especially if your staff, is to have a board member kind of intervene and, maybe talk with the donor, appreciate them for their support. But ultimately, you can't allow the tail to wag the dog. Any one donor, can't control the mission and services of the organization. So that's my short answer. I'm sure there's a lot more to that story that we could talk through, but if it's any consolation, I've certainly been there, and I know how challenging it can be because you want to maintain the relationship if you can. Sometimes, though, sometimes the relationship has to be sacrificed if they're making demands that are really beyond their scope as a donor. Other questions, Stacy? Thanks for that question, dear.
So Alice, we had one other question from Jean.
Okay.
When you were talking about accepting donations and providing a report to the donors, so she was wondering if you meant a personal report to a donor or a general report that you send them.
That's interesting. I guess I'm going to answer that by saying one or both. So going back to the investment report, the actual document that I see organizations doing, that's obviously something that you can send and share with everybody. You can put it on your website. This is what donors make possible in our organization, and we're proud to share that and thank them for what they're doing. If you're working with an individual and you're dating and you're cultivating that relationship, then I do think putting together something personal for them is certainly appropriate. If they're making, I was talking on the break with somebody that just received or is about to receive a $25,000 gift. So it's certainly appropriate that you provide, something specific to that person. This is what how your $25,000 was spent and used. So it's certainly appropriate to, as part of your stewardship, to report back to that donor in an individual way. Good question. Really good question. Anything else, Stacy?
No, that was the only other question that came in.
Okay. So, so before I move on, just to re-emphasize, maybe put a little H next to this one as well. What are you doing to strengthen your stewardship? Which is, as you see, doesn't have anything to do with the thank you letter. That's acknowledgement. Stewardship is what you do to report on the results of the gift after you've received it and thank them for it. So a commitment, a daily, weekly, and monthly commitment to stewardship is going to go a long way towards being in a position to ask current or maybe a prospective donor for an individual gift or for a larger gift. So a couple of what I call lessons of the pandemic, and I think this applies to a lot of things right now, but in particular to nonprofits and to fundraising. Being transparent. I've seen a lot more organizations just be very open and honest about what's happening in the organization, about what the challenges are, about the needs of the people that they're serving. And I think donors value transparency. I think it's always been important. And I think it's one of those now more than ever kinds of things. Also about being relevant. I mean, you can't afford to be tone deaf right now. Obviously, this is an unprecedented time. I think you've really got to make whatever your case is and your cause relevant to people. How are they doing, whoever it is you serve or whatever it is you do, what makes it relevant now? I know a lot of organizations, a lot of my clients, particularly back March, April, May, June, we're making phone calls to people. How are you doing? Checking in, just showing concern and care. I think right now that just goes a long way. It's the right thing to do. And I think the more you embrace that, incorporate that into your fundraising, the better. Again, focusing on how people feel, how they feel about your organization, how they feel about life, how they feel about this crazy pandemic we're going through, but really zeroing in on that. And if nothing else, keep connecting, not in an obnoxious way, but in a, we're here, we're checking in. Maybe it's through social media, maybe it's an occasional email, maybe it's in a gratitude report. And it's probably a combination of one or two or three of those things or more, depending on the size of your development program and the number of donors and people that you're trying to reach. And of course, again, kind of now more than ever, I think being authentic as a person and as a representative of your organization and, as a fundraiser. And this last one I want to share is just a reminder and a question. What are you doing to delight your donors? What are you doing to delight your donors? So maybe this gets a little H next to it. What are you doing to delight your donors? I know you're asking. I know you are hopefully communicating with them, but is there, and if not, I think there should be something you can do to delight your donors, surprise them, because there's a lot of research that says that people who are philanthropic are giving to an average of 7 organizations. So they're supporting your cause, your mission, and probably many others, their faith organization, their alma mater, their children's organizations, just whatever. And so, quite frankly, you want to be the organization that delights them and reminds them how important their support is, going back to know thy donor. So I think we're just about out of time. I'd be glad to take a few, we got a little bit more time for questions, Stacey, or do we need to wrap it up?
We have a couple minutes. We can take a few questions if anybody
Okay.
has them.
I would also love if you've had an aha moment or your favorite takeaway. If we were in person, that's what I'd do. I'd go around the room and ask you, what's your favorite takeaway? What was the most impactful thing that you heard in this call? So if anybody wants to share that, I'd love to hear it. I think fundraising has never been easy, and fundraising is especially difficult right now. At the same time, there's a lot of giving going on. There's a lot of philanthropy going on. All that data that I shared about people, for the most part, are continuing to support the organizations that they've always supported because they know you, they know your mission, they believe in it, it's important to them, and they trust you. And so that's an opportunity for you to build on that, to deepen that trust, to deepen that relationship. And I'll say one other thing, going back to what I said earlier, if you've got people that are kind of out here on the periphery, I call them in the outer rings of Saturn, they really don't know anything about your organization. That's really not the place to start. The place to start is here. People who are already giving, people who serve on your board, have served on your board, have been a donor, are a member. They already have some connection to your organization. Those are the folks in the center of the circle who are much more likely to consider giving again or giving more or making a bigger investment in your organization. So here's my contact info. I'd be glad to answer any follow-up questions if you had them. Feel free to connect via social media. And I'll wind up with one of my favorites. Some of you may have heard this before, but it's one of my favorites. A doctor, a lawyer, and a fundraiser all die and go to heaven. St. Peter's there to welcome them, and he says, "Welcome to heaven. I'll grant you one wish." And so the doctor says, "Well, I'd like $1 million." And St. Peter says, "Here you go, $1 million. Welcome to heaven." And so the lawyer sits forward and he says, "Well, I'd like $1 billion." And St. Peter says, "Okay, here you go, $1 billion. Welcome to heaven. Come on in." So the fundraiser stepped forward, and St. Peter says, "Welcome to heaven. I'll grant you one wish." And the fundraiser says, "Can I just have the business cards of the two people that came in ahead of me?" But I'm pumped. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I appreciate it, and I will take any other questions or comments if we have time.
Just want to say thank you. It was very good and motivating.
Thanks, Maisha. It's always
Very
good to
good.
see you.
Yep, very good.
Well, thank you, Alice Lee. I think everyone enjoyed that presentation. Thanks everyone for joining us on our virtual Snap meeting. We're probably going to do some more of these going forward. We haven't actually planned out we don't have any dates or times set, but give us some feedback on that as well if you like this. And of course, if you have any great speakers, there's probably no one as good as Alice Lee, but there's probably someone out there that you think could do a great job as well. Let us know that, and we'll see if we can put maybe one of these on maybe every couple of months here. Also want to mention, of course, this was a joint meeting with for AFP chapter in Volusia County. So just want to thank everyone there at AFP. Also, National Day of Philanthropy. Hardy, I don't know if you're still on or not. Did you want to give an update on that?
Yes, thank you, James. And first of all, thank you to James Moore for being our sponsor again this year. The AFP Volusia Flagler chapter hosted National Philanthropy Day is scheduled for November the 20th. It will be a virtual event this year. And watch your email inbox for information on how to submit your agency champion. That information will be coming out soon, but November 20th. So watch for your submission opportunities. We look forward to everyone participating. Thank you.
All right.
James, can I chime in?
Yes, you may.
Somebody asked in the chat about access to the slides, and I'm happy to do that. So I've already sent them to Stacy, so I'm happy for you all to receive them. So if you want to send that out. And I also wanted to comment on Cynthia with Futures Foundation, who talked about providing a customized report on the student that the donor who provided the scholarship. I just think that's exactly what I'm talking about, and it's just a great idea. So anyway, just wanted to add those two things.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stacy, for handling my technical side of things. That's not one of my strengths, so I always appreciate that. Everyone have a good day and go make an ass somewhere.
Love it.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.